All the drama that you guys saw on TV was just as bad in the stadium. It was scenes. It was a pretty cagey fight. I would have liked a goal earlier on, but it all was worth it for just everything that happened in the 90th onward.
I'm interested to know, when you were in the stadium, how much did you get a sense of, or could you even understand what was going on?
That was going to be
like when Senegal went off the pitch, you think, like, what's going on here? You saw the thing happening with the goalkeeper and the towels. What was it actually like being there?
So I missed the whole towels thing. I couldn't catch that. I was right above the Senegal fans, so obviously a lot of my focus was what was happening there. I did understand that Senegal taking, the manager of Senegal taking his players off. I understood what was happening in the moment because I did see him kind of just like waving his players into the tunnel. But I didn't see the VAR play, right? It was never shown in the stadium.
So you didn't know if it was a penalty?
No idea, right?
Oh, wow.
And to me, for example, the Senegal disallowed goal, right? Which in theory, it's a foul, right? Before it's a disallowed goal. So you can't review it with VAR because the whistle was blown before the ball goes in. You can't review it with VAR. In the moment, live, it was right under me. In the moment, I thought it was a foul. It looked like a foul. Later, I've seen the highlight and the replay afterwards, less so, right? And then I had no idea what was going on with VAR. Wow. Like when there were rumblings, like, oh, VAR, they might go in. And when he goes like that and he goes, the stadium erupts. And then I'm texting in the groups, is it a penalty? Right. And my question should have been like, all right, sure, it's a VAR penalty. My question should have been, would they have called that penalty in the other box with VAR? That's the question we should be asking ourselves.
Well, you're never going to get a proper answer to that, or a definitive answer. I'm also keen to know, what was the atmosphere like after all the madness had finished? What was the feeling in Morocco? What was the feeling?
Yeah, I think it was a sad day. It was rainy in Rabat, and I think Rabat was crying for Morocco. They've been waiting for this moment for a very long time, and there was a lot of expectation, and I think that was the theme of this tournament. This expectation that turned into pressure. You're at home. It's almost like you're supposed to win. Morocco has rarely been in this position where they're supposed to win, right? They've won one AFCON in their history. And they've made a World Cup semi-final. They have world-class players playing at top clubs. And now suddenly they have to shoulder this burden of having to win. They're not Argentina. They're not Brazil. They're not France. They're not Germany. So I think it was something new for a lot of these players. And I think the fact that they didn't win, paired up with that expectation, getting to the final, being so close, having a penalty kick in the 90th minute gone absolutely wrong. I think devastating is too small of an adjective to describe what was going on through Moroccans' hearts that day.
Sadio Mane, were you able to see his actions during the stoppage, to see him trying to bring his players on, to see him talking to everyone? Did you have eyes on him?
Yeah, you could see that it was Sadio Mane at the edge of the pitch, just like waiting, you know? Like I could tell that a lot of the players had gone off or into the tunnel, and then there were like 4 Senegal players. And you could tell, like, Sadio Mane is unmistakable, right? And he was there, and you could tell that he was trying to usher everybody back on for that moment.
Where do you stand, Nico, on potential repercussions? Because this isn't finished. There's you know, or you're going to get into this later with Mbizo in terms of should there be sanctions? Yeah. Morocco talking about, there's rumours of Morocco taking legal action.
Yeah. I don't think this is the end of the story, and I think we'll see repercussions probably into the summer for Senegal, for example.
Senegal players left the pitch for around 15 minutes in protest of a penalty call in stoppage time before their eventual stunning victory. AFCON does indeed have regulations regarding players leaving the pitch during a match, which says, quote, if for any reason whatsoever a team withdraws from the competition or does not report for a match or refuses to play or leaves the ground before the regular end of the match without the authorization of the referee, it shall be considered loser and shall be eliminated for good from the current competition. Now, Nico, reading that, are you surprised by the way that things played out, and do you expect any repercussions from this?
Listen, I think everything is surprising. You showed the regulations there. If they wanted to make the scandal worse, CAF, they would eliminate Senegal and give the trophy to Morocco. That's not going to happen, obviously. But do they have grounds because Senegal walked off the pitch in protest?
You just read the rules.
Yeah, but they're not going to make.
So what's
Geoff,
the point of the rules?
It'll make it. This is the world of football.
Do you think
you find them? You give them a heavy fine and sanctions that I believe will come, just judging by the rules, because there was a violation of the laws of the game.
Is that because it was
Senegal.
a final?
Any game, any match.
But do you think they're not taking action because it's a final?
And just because of how everything played out, it was highly dramatic. But if CAF really wanted to, which they won't, but if they really wanted to, they could forfeit Senegal from the competition and give the trophy to Morocco. Again, it's not. It would make the situation much worse. It's obviously not going to happen, and I think they'll justify that with either monetary sanctions or suspensions, which is probably going to be the case, and the next official matches are in the World Cup. So keep an eye out on that, because really, for as much as you didn't like the sanction, you didn't like the VAR call, as soft as you think it was, there's got to be like a certain upholding of the sanctity of the match, which Senegal clearly didn't do.
Also, if you're Morocco, you're going to show up. You're going to show that here's your rules. These are your rules of the competition. Yeah. You've written here that you are eliminated. So why are you not doing this?
When Senegal walked off the pitch, when the majority of the Senegalese team walked off the pitch, fans in the stadium were chanting "Championes, Championes," because per the rules, it's a forfeit. Now, let's go to the human element out of all this, and this is my thing with VAR. When there's this massive narrative from the start of the tournament that has been building about Morocco already having won this thing, that it was fixed for Morocco, that the referees were in favor of Morocco, which is a strong allegation to make, and I don't have the evidence to justify that. But I know how football works as well. You get the little calls in your favor historically. That's how it's worked, right? Historically. The home side always gets a couple, but
it's an easy accusation to make.
Right.
It's a difficult one to prove.
Senegal had their opportunities during the match, and Diaye had a one-on-one with Bono that he puts that into the back of the net, and you don't need to go to a 90th minute VAR to find the winner in this game. But with all of that building up, and you get a VAR call, which the fans don't see, there is a human reaction, which I don't justify, and in fact, I highly condemn the way that the Senegal fans behaved, because it was bad. The way that they went after the police, like people were hurt. It was not a good look at all. That happens, right? It happens. You get a VAR call like that. Your mind only thinks on, like, reading between the lines, oh, they're working this in favor of Morocco. So but it's still, again, I don't justify it. It was wrong for Senegal to walk off the pitch.
I'm just thinking off the top of my head. Do we think that possibly, we know Sadio Mane, we saw his stance, and he's been widely applauded, and rightly so, for getting that. I just wonder if somebody got in his ear or went to the Senegal team and said, guys,
we're going to
realise you will be eliminated if you don't get yourselves back on that pitch now.
I think, listen, that is very close to reality, at least of how I interpret things. There's a lot of talk about the lack of fair play from Morocco and stealing the towel and all these shenanigans and the dark arts, which to a certain point I'm okay with. But I think they crossed the line, and the players like tackling the backup goalkeeper, I think that was a really bad look. That was not okay. To a certain point, you need to stop. And I feel like the focus is on a lot of these things, but also I don't think we're understanding that a team in a final walked off the pitch. Imagine that was in a World Cup final. There is an essence of anti-fair play in that as well.
Do you have an overall sentiment of how harsh CAF is going to punish Senegal? Do you have some sort of leaning towards it?
I have no idea, but I think
they are in a really difficult position.
And a lot of the players too who walked off the pitch, and again, their next official match is against France at the World Cup. I believe there will be sanctions. Like, it's only logical, right? And I think that's a reality.
Yeah, but what sanctions? I mean, it would be an incredible call to take the trophy off of them and eliminate it.
They won't do that. Right?
I agree with you.
They won't make matters worse.
I don't, and it won't make it better either, will it? What's done is done to a degree, but they've got to do something. I've got no idea what they do, and you'd hate to be the person who says, yeah, rules are rules, you're out. Trophies, Morocco's.
No, but I think you need to set a strong precedent.
But what
because
can they
now,
do?
if you open the door to a team not being okay with
Don't like a decision, we're walking off.
a decision, you walk off the pitch and there's no repercussions, that sets a horrible precedent. Because I think now with VAR, if you were a skeptic before, with VAR it's gotten even worse. So as FIFA or CAF, as governing bodies of the sport, you need to uphold a certain standard of respect towards the game.
So what
To
what can they do?
uphold the laws.
Yeah, but so Nico, what can they do?
Is it a
fine? Is it gonna
suspension?
make-
I think players. I think the manager will be suspended. I think players will be
Players that
suspended.
walked off.
What players? So you're talking start of the World Cup? They can't select the players. Their first 11.
You look at the laws, and I think they violated a law.
Oh no, Nico, I don't disagree. I think
Right?
what happened was terrible. It was a really bad look for football.
Yeah.
It's a terrible thing.
How are we applying
It's a terrible
the
thing that
laws?
happened. It's what should the repercussions be? That's the question here. And what are the repercussions that are at a level that is suitable for the misdemeanor? What is it?
If they suspend all the players that walked off, what were there 4 that stayed on the pitch? That's automatically, they have to cede the game to France anyway, right?
Incredible for you to go there. You guys are already seeing him right between us and Mbizo Mzamane, our CBS Sports AFCON reporter. And Mbizo, great to see you again 2 days in a row now. Let's pick up on the conversation that we were having earlier with the Confederation coming out and saying what they had to say about the rules. What do you have to say about the potential punishment that Senegal could be facing?
Yeah, I think CAF's posture, it has to be that, right? It has to be, look, we need to follow the rules. We need to carry ourselves with decorum on a football field. I personally can say that I disagreed with Pape Thiaw's, motivation and movement to bring the players off of the field. Again, I applaud, and deeply respect Sadio Mane for calling them back onto the pitch. It is a complicated situation, as Nico mentioned. There is rule of law, but then there is also common sense. There is also the humanitarian, the human factor. I think CAF has to sanction Pape Thiaw, which I believe they have done already, suspension indefinitely. Still need to confirm that. And I think there will be more sanctions to come, and I get it. It's a complicated situation. I wouldn't want to be a CAF executive at this moment in time. But again, if people are going to sanction Senegal, which could potentially be the correct thing to do, Morocco definitely also has to be sanctioned for a number of different idiosyncrasies and a number of different attitudes and behaviors, and also bringing the game into disrepute in a number of different ways. So I think that it's a sensitive situation, and even if there are going to be sanctions, those sanctions need to be widespread to a number of different officials, players, potentially the FAs, because there was a lot that was going on all over the place, on the pitch, off the pitch, and by the way, in the lead up to this final. It wasn't simply based on the final that these tempers flared and this situation occurred. I think it was pressure bursting pipes over the course of the tournament.
Yeah, and Mbizo, listen, I'm not African, so I don't understand the idiosyncrasy of the African continent like you might. But as an outsider, I'll give you my take on the situation, if I may. I do believe that, like, for example, it's probably the fault of the FA where the ball boys are tackling a goalkeeper, right? That deserves some sort of punishment. Pape Thiaw bringing his team into halftime and then coming out, playing those lines where you're flirting with a forfeit. That needs to be sanctioned because you didn't forfeit the game. And Mbizo, I also think there was an unhealthy amount of talk from within the tournament, from officials, from teams, from federations, whoever it was, that there was this accusation that the referees were favoring Morocco, were going to favor Morocco. I think that puts into question the the standard of the laws, the essence of the game, right? And if from within your own federation and within your own confederation, there's a lot of this talk, it only weakens the legitimacy of the laws that you're trying to uphold, the refereeing, and I think referees were managing with that pressure the entire tournament. So just for the next iterations, perhaps it won't happen as strongly, but I think this tournament serves as a moment of reflection in order to not have a situation like we're seeing right here get out of hand, because the players walking off the pitch, I feel like only emboldened the fans in the stands to get as rowdy and as violent as they got.
Yeah, I mean, perhaps, but certainly I think it comes down to this edition as opposed to it being an AFCON thing. I don't think this is necessarily something that needs to be focused and improved upon. It's the first time we've seen anything of the like. And if we go back to, for example, Ivory Coast, there wasn't one peep about, referees being partial to Ivory Coast. There wasn't one peep about referees being partial to anyone. In fact, for me, that was some of the best refereeing across the board that I've seen. I mean, there were mistakes here and there. No referee is perfect. No football proponent is perfect, period. But we didn't even have any discussion or whispers about, impartiality. But we did here. Whether one can prove it or not, it is a situation that I think tons of people, tons of fans from a number of different countries, from a number of different backgrounds, have decided that, you know what, this doesn't look fair. This doesn't look right. Again, for me, that doesn't excuse Senegal's protest of coming off. I do believe that they need to be sanctioned. But that's what needs to happen. I think heavy sanctions is sufficient. But I, like many other football proponents, believe that justice was done, very frankly, and I'll die on that hill. But as you mentioned just before we went live, that despite all of that, Morocco still had an opportunity to win that game. We wouldn't be having any of these discussions if Morocco buries that penalty, Diaz buries that penalty, and Morocco win. We'd be having other discussions. We'd be continuing to talk about whether or not that win was credible on the basis of some of these accusations about impartiality from the referees. So it's a complicated situation. I'm honest that me on my own, I couldn't take that decision on how to sanction, where to sanction, who exactly. So it's going to be a really long haul for CAF dealing with this situation.
Yeah, I think particularly for CAF, the situation has arisen maybe not in previous AFCONs, but for example, in the African Champions League, there's been situations of questionable refereeing. And again, it's one thing that the media questions. It's another thing when it's coming from inside. I don't know how boldly some of the teams and some of the federations, perhaps players, managers, or presidents of federations were trying to push this narrative so that it wasn't so much against them, the refereeing issue, but it serves as a precedent, right, to keep things in order. And let's just say Diaz scored that penalty kick, right? I would have been saying today that Senegal had their opportunities to win the match and not take it to the 90th minute where you're putting the referee in a situation where, oh, there's a VAR call, here's a penalty for Morocco, right? In Ndiaye had a one-on-one. Who was it? It was Pape Gueye, I think, who had the header 5 minutes in. The man of the match up until the 90th minute was Bono. Senegal had their opportunities to win, and when you're playing against a home crowd, a referee that's feeling the pressure right here from everybody in the stadium, Senegal had their opportunities. At the end of the day, they ended up winning the final anyway, right? And we're talking a little bit more about Senegal walking off the pitch, acts of lack of fair play from Morocco, but I think you're spot on, Mbizo. It's a very layered and difficult situation to analyze because I think a lot of people are at fault. There's a lot of players here, and with media, with the virality of things, I think narratives are easily propelled to the forefront, and people want to believe what they want to believe, and with so much on the line in Mbizo, I think it's very difficult to have a nuanced conversation about everything that's going on.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And I think it's easier for us here because, to a certain extent, while I'm a very outspoken Senegal fan, and obviously you're a big supporter of Morocco, we are still neutral parties. I mean, I can't imagine being Senegalese and fearing for the trophy being taken away from you, or being Moroccan and feeling like you were completely hard done. It's very difficult. But again, it's difficult to be in Pape Thiaw's shoes, and it's also, I think, important to remember that protest in a general sense, whether it's in football or otherwise, rarely happens within the confines of the rules. One of the reasons you protest is because you believe that the rules are either not being followed or not being applied fairly, or whatever the case might be. Extremely sensitive situation. And again, there are going to be repercussions for this, as you said, that go beyond this competition to the World Cup, potentially to the next AFCON. We could see some rule changes, some addition of certain sanctions. I don't know what's going to happen. And I quite admit that I'm rather nervous to see how this plays out, because potentially it also spills out of football into other socio-political and socio-cultural arenas, which is my greatest fear, as a matter of fact, that this spills over beyond football.